Okay, so we're diving into some fascinating financial stuff today. And I got to say, this one number really jumped out at me from all the stuff we've been looking at.
Oh, yes.
48%
Wow.
of Americans
Okay.
hold no investment assets. None. Zip. Zilch.
That's,
And one of the articles we read basically said this could mean a lot of people will never be able to retire. They'll just have to work forever.
yeah, I can see why that number would catch your eye. That's a pretty stark reality for a lot of folks.
It is. And you know what's interesting is that across all these different discussions we've been looking at, we're seeing like this whole spectrum of anxieties about money. Like people are talking about everything. Investing,
Yeah.
debt, the cost of living, politics. It's all connected.
It really is. And I think our mission today is to kind of sift through all these different perspectives and figure out what are the key things people are worried about right now and maybe what are some ways forward.
Exactly. So let's start with this whole investment thing. Nearly half of Americans with no investments. That's pretty huge. And we also saw that like 40% don't invest in the stock market specifically.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some nuance there.
Yeah.
But either way, it's a lot of people not really taking advantage of potential growth, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
One article even asked straight up, like, what's stopping you from investing?
Hmm.
I mean, especially nowadays, it's so easy to get started, even if you just have a little bit of money.
Right. And it makes you wonder, like, if it's not being invested, then where is it? Sitting in a savings account, probably earning next to nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the average interest rate for savings accounts is something like 0.41%. You're barely keeping up with inflation.
Right. I mean, you compare that to the stock market, the S&P 500 historically returns around 10% per year on average.
Exactly. So you're missing out on a lot of potential growth by just leaving your money in savings.
It's almost like there's an opportunity cost to not investing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And, you know, maybe it's not just about access or convenience. Maybe it's about financial literacy. Or maybe people are just really risk averse, especially after everything that's happened in the economy recently.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about debt.
Okay.
This is another big theme we saw pop up everywhere.
Yeah.
One person actually said they've been living completely debt-free since 2021. No credit cards, no car loans, nothing.
Wow.
And they said their business teacher told them it was impossible.
Really?
Yeah. So clearly there are a lot of different opinions out there about whether or not it's even possible to live without debt.
There are.
But this person's whole point was that being debt-free is the ultimate freedom.
I mean, I can see that.
If you don't owe anyone anything, you can focus on your goals. You can do what you want with your money.
Yeah, you're not constantly sending a big chunk of your paycheck to creditors.
Exactly. And think about how debt impacts younger generations. We saw that something like 63% of millennials can't afford to buy a house.
That's a lot.
And for Gen Z, it's even worse, 87%. And one source directly attributed that to their debt levels. So it's like this huge barrier to building wealth and security.
It's definitely a major factor. And of course, we can't talk about debt without talking about student loans.
Yep.
The average student loan debt is like $37,000. And the total outstanding student loan debt is something crazy like $1.28 trillion.
That's insane.
It is. And the average cost of a 4-year degree is around $30,000. So you have to wonder, is college even worth it?
Yeah. I mean, at what point does the cost outweigh the benefits? Okay, let's zoom out a bit now and talk about the bigger picture.
Oh,
The economy.
okay.
The rising cost of living is affecting everyone.
It is. And, you know, we actually saw this really interesting example about the price of eggs.
Oh, yeah.
And they were comparing how much egg prices had gone up under different presidents.
Right, which is interesting.
It is. But it's also kind of concerning because it seems like some people care more about their political party than they do about how much things cost.
Yeah. I mean, it's like their political identity is more important than their actual financial situation.
Maybe. And, you know, it reminded me of that whole discussion about the Trump tariffs.
Oh, yeah.
One person said that even talking about the tariffs is like a win for Trump.
Like it plays right into his whole art of the deal strategy.
Exactly. Like he wants to control the narrative, keep everyone talking about it, even if it's not actually good for the economy.
I can see that. But then we also saw this other perspective that argued the tariffs are actually a way to stop spending so much.
Yeah, like forcing the country to live within its means.
Right. Kind of like how a family might cut back on spending if they have too much debt.
Exactly. So it's like this unconventional argument for tariffs as a way to reduce national debt.
It's pretty wild how differently people can view the same economic policies.
It is. And, you know, it makes me think about that one source that talked about the importance of contentment in personal finance.
Oh, yeah.
Like, being grateful for what you have, even if it's not a lot.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to get caught up in this constant pursuit of more money, more stuff.
It is. But sometimes it's important to just appreciate what you have and focus on what truly matters.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, so another big theme we saw was this idea of taking control of your finances.
yeah,
And a big part of that is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
like stepping outside your comfort zone.
Exactly. One person told this story about how they used to think they couldn't live without a credit card.
Really?
Yeah, and they said a lot of their students felt the same way,
Hmm.
but then they actually tried living without one and they realized it was totally possible.
Interesting.
And they also said that they got denied for a lower interest rate on their credit card.
Oh, wow.
So they just decided to pay off all their cards and cancel them.
That's a pretty bold move.
It is. But it's a great example of taking control and not letting these financial institutions dictate your life.
It's about taking ownership of your finances.
Totally. And this leads into another strategy we saw. Losing payments.
Losing payment.
Yeah. The idea is that you pay off all your debts so you don't have any monthly payments.
Okay.
So, for example, if you have a car lease, you could pay it off early, and then you wouldn't have that monthly payment anymore.
I see.
And then you could redirect that money toward other financial goals.
That makes sense, like freeing up your cash flow.
Exactly. And this is actually similar to baby step 6, which is all about paying off your mortgage early.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It's about getting rid of that huge monthly payment and having the peace of mind of owning your home outright.
Yeah, especially if something unexpected happens.
Exactly. And on a slightly different note, one person even said they were happy about the possibility of saving money on taxes if the government cuts spending.
Interesting. So their thinking is that if the government spends less, then they might be able to lower taxes.
Right. Which would put more money back in people's pockets.
I guess that could be a potential upside to reduce government spending.
Yeah. Now, we also saw a couple of things that weren't directly related to money, but still kind of fit with the overall theme.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, one person was talking about how it seems like a lot of unelected people have a ton of influence these days.
Hmm.
And then there was this other comment from someone in Minnesota who was questioning whether their elected officials are actually doing their jobs.
So basically, people are feeling like maybe those in power aren't really serving them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It's like there's this growing distrust of authority.
Definitely. All right, so as we wrap up here, I think we've seen some pretty clear themes emerge.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of Americans who aren't investing.
Right.
The younger generations are drowning in debt.
Yep.
And people have some very different opinions about the economy and the government. They do.
But the good news is that there are things we can do to take control of our finances.
Absolutely. We don't have to just sit back and be passive.
Exactly. We can make choices that will empower us and help us achieve our financial goals.
And I think that's a really important message to leave our listeners with.
It is. So as you're thinking about everything we've talked about today, I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
What's one small step you can take today to feel more in control of your financial future?
That's a great question. And another one might be, where do you go to get reliable information about the economy?
Because there's a lot of noise out there.
There is, so it's important to be discerning and find sources you trust.
Exactly. Well, I hope this deep dive has given everyone some things to think about.
Me too. It's been a really interesting conversation.
It has, and I encourage all of our listeners to keep learning and exploring these topics.
Yeah, because the more you know, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the complex world of personal finance.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been fun.
It has. And to all our listeners out there, keep on learning, keep on growing, and keep on taking control of your financial journey. We'll see you next time.